Imagine you're a deranged monster. You think being an unchecked serial killer is a dream gig? But spoiler, in Dexter's universe, that couldn't be further from the truth. From the moment the darkness takes root inside of you, to the second Dexter Morgan wraps you in plastic, your whole life is just one long countdown to getting outsmarted by a guy who brings donuts to work. You are born into something that was never supposed to be called a childhood. Maybe it's a sister dying in the shower, or a violent dad who communicated mostly through his fists. It could be a shipping container drenched in blood and filled with sounds of screaming, and you are too young to understand any of it, but your brain records every second anyway, because that is just the kind of luck you have. No villain starts out evil on purpose. You're basically assembled from ungodly levels of trauma. So you build a life around it. The world rewards people who can pretend well. So you become the best pretender in the room. Like Miguel Prado, the guy everyone trusts with their problems. Or like Arthur Mitchell, the church deacon with the perfect house and the big warm smile. The act does not tire you out. You are actually really good at it. You study people. Understanding them makes them easier to manage. You wear humanity like a costume that fits just well enough to fool most people. Most, but not all. Underneath all of that, the urge to kill grows, and eventually, so does the body count grows. Your first kill delivers a release that nothing else in your life has ever matched, and you are not sloppy about it, at least not yet. You have rituals. Everybody has a signature. Yours is whatever makes you feel most like yourself. You tell yourself your rituals make you different from the others. The random ones, the messy ones. You have standards, you have structure, and a whole system. This is the story you run in your head whenever the quiet parts of your brain start asking questions you don't want to answer. It's a good enough story, even though it's completely wrong. And the longer you get away with it, the more that confidence morphs into something close to arrogance. You stop double-checking things you used to double-check. You stop worrying about the angles you once obsessed over. Why would you? You've been doing this for years. You have looked investigators in the eye and watched them look away. You have sat in rooms full of people talking about your own crimes without a single person catching on. At some point, the idea that something could genuinely threaten you starts to seem almost funny. Miami Metro eventually starts picking up on something in the city. Investigators start to build a profile, find patterns, and get close enough to make you adjust slightly. And then, they always turn away. Outworked by your planning, the system is good at catching careless people, but you aren't careless. Years pass. Your confidence and body count continue to climb until it crosses a line and becomes something harder and less flexible than confidence. It becomes certain. And that shift from careful to certain is exactly where the ground beneath you starts to soften, even if you cannot feel it yet. That is when Dexter Morgan shows up. You look right at him and see nothing to worry about. He looks right at you and sees everything. While you are busy maintaining performance, he is quietly pulling threads on the outside. He moves the way water moves through rock, slowly, patiently, finding every crack and waiting there until the dam gives. By the time you feel any pressure at all, he already knows more about you than your own family does. He has studied your patterns and verified every detail. And unlike the investigators who keep nearly getting there, Dexter has absolutely no interest in arresting you. The most disorienting thing is how completely normal he seems. He asks how your day went and actually waits for the answer. He remembers small details. He smiles at the right moments and fits into every environment without arousing any suspicion. By every count, he's harmless. And the gap between that surface and what actually lives underneath, it's the exact same gap you have been hiding behind your whole life. He knows the trick because he perfected it. He performs humanity so fluently that even you who have spent years running the exact same performance can't spot the seams. When that realization settles, you almost can't believe it. He is better at being you than you are. Some of you feel him closing in before you can even name it. Maybe you're like Brian Moser. You spend your entire run building toward a reunion, draining victims and posing the bodies like gallery pieces. Every scene a message written directly to your brother. You genuinely just want to connect. You want to share something with someone who finally gets it. What you get instead is a knife across your throat and a scene staged to look like a suicide. And the connection you spent years constructing ends in about 2 minutes. Your mistake is assuming that sharing the same horror show origin means you both end up with the same values. You grew up in the same shipping container, you just made completely different choices about what to build on top of it. Classic sibling miscommunication, honestly, if siblings were serial killers. The thing is, you're not entirely wrong about Dexter. You correctly identify what he is. You understand you share the same damage, the same origin, the same darkness rattling around in the same bloodline. You just get the conclusion completely backwards. You assume that because he is what he is, he'd want what you want. Freedom, chaos, no rules. The two of you finally operating out in the open together. What you never account for is that the leash is the whole point. Your version could be more like Miguel Prado's. You don't just cross paths with Dexter, you befriend him. You learn from him, you convince yourself you're basically the same person in different job titles. For a stretch, it genuinely looks like a real partnership. You absorb the methods, internalize the logic, and borrow the code. And then you kill an innocent woman because the code was never really yours. You borrowed it like a library book, skipping the important parts. Dexter strangles you without ceremony, and whatever you thought you'd built together becomes just another entry in a very long list. You thought you'd found your person. What you found was a mirror showing you exactly how far short you fell. Then there's the version where the whole thing nearly breaks entirely. You're the closest thing to a version of Dexter that actually functions, running a 30-year killing cycle while also being a family man, a church leader, a respected community figure. Dexter doesn't come after you immediately. He embeds himself in your life under a fake name first, looking for the answer to something he's been sitting with for a long time. Can you actually have both? The darkness and the normal life? You look like proof that you can. What Dexter discovers once he's actually inside your world is that you absolutely can't. Your family is terrified of you. Your normalcy is a performance duct taped together by decades of fear. But before Dexter can act, you find Rita. You walk into Dexter's home and murder her in the bathtub, leaving baby Harrison sitting in her blood, the exact same way Dexter once sat in his mother's blood in a shipping container. The whole cycle is coming to a close in the worst possible way. Dexter tracks you down and beats you to death with a hammer, and it doesn't feel like justice. It feels like a bill arriving 30 years too late, with someone who deserved none of it as the price. Seasons pass. The kills settle into something close to routine. Grief does not knock you sideways the way it does other people, because you were never really in this for connection. Every loss, you tell yourself, just clear space for the next chapter. You are adaptable, resilient even. This is one of the better stories you run. The problem is that Dexter is adaptable as well, also resilient, and he is running his own story at the same time. With your name already written into the next chapter, you keep going because stopping is not something you know how to do. You recalibrate. If you're like Jordan Chase, you take it so far that you never pick up a weapon at all. You build a whole network of men who do it for you. It's a clean system, right up until you meet Dexter. You watch your men disappear one by one, each of them finding out very quickly that the protection you promised had a ceiling you never mentioned. Or maybe your version of the story goes sideways in a completely different direction. Maybe you're the type who builds theater instead of empires. If you are like Travis Marshall, you stage your crime scenes like entries from the Book of Revelation, real bodies arranged into end-of-the-world tableaux so elaborate that investigators need a full minute just to understand what they're looking at. You may be completely batshit, hallucinating, and taking guidance from people who have been dead a long time, if they ever existed at all. That means you've been holding full conversations with the ghost without noticing. You kidnap innocents, maybe even Harrison, Dexter's son, which is the kind of decision that puts you at the very top of his priority list. The chase takes time, but the kill is fast, and everything you staged, every elaborate scene, every world-ending vision, is ended with a single knife stroke in an empty church. All that drama. The most ordinary exit possible. Alternatively, your whole story collapses because of a fixation that eats everything else around it. You're not building an empire. You just can't stop chasing Dexter. And that obsession burns through your judgment the same way you burned Sergeant Dokes alive in that cabin, completely and without much hesitation. You flee to somewhere remote when Miami gets too uncomfortable. You tell yourself that wanting him badly enough is its own kind of protection. It isn't. He follows you no matter where you tried to hide and kills you there. The only thing exceptional about your obsession, in the end, was how far out of his way he had to travel to close it. Then there's the version of you carrying the most personal wound of the whole group. You're Dr. Vogel's son, the woman who literally designed the code Dexter that runs his life by. You go to extreme lengths like removing sections of your victims' brains. You've turned one original trauma, like a mother who threw you away, into a full career of escalating horror. Your end doesn't come in a dramatic showdown. It comes in a police interview room on camera with Dexter pushing a pen through your neck. All that surgical training, all that elaborate methodology, finished off with a pen from a stationary set in a holding cell. The indignity of that is almost impressive. Let's say you're the most beloved man around, generous, warm, the one everyone turns to. Under that, you've been hunting young women for years, embalming their bodies, keeping them in an underground bunker like trophies in a collection nobody was supposed to find. When your son disappears, and Dexter is the obvious loose thread, you respond with the quiet confidence of someone who's never faced a consequence they couldn't make disappear. Then you target Harrison. You pressure the investigation. You're patient, methodical, and genuinely dangerous. What you can't account for is that 10 years of living quietly didn't make Dexter softer. It made him quieter. There's a difference. When it ends, you're in your own bunker. surrounded by every woman you ever took, and Dexter is the last face you see. The empire you built to show your power becomes the room where that power finally runs out. Again, you could go the route of deciding you don't even need to get your hands dirty. You become the money behind everything, funding killers, collecting their footage and trophies, hosting private dinners where people in your line of work can feel appreciated and paid for it. You've put so many layers of distance between your name and any specific crime that normal law enforcement will probably never reach you. And then Dexter walks into your world wearing a dead man's identity, patient and completely invisible to you until it's far too late. When you finally figure out who you're actually dealing with, you abduct Angel Batista and wrap him in plastic in a direct copy of Dexter's own ritual, staging it as a loyalty test. Kill Batista, prove the code is gone, prove you own him now. The room goes very quiet. You watch Dexter stand over Batista with a knife in his hand. And after a long beat, he cuts the restraints instead. You fire anyway. Batista takes the bullets in his back, and his last look at Dexter carries everything. The grief, the fury, 30 years of almost getting there, and then he's gone. Every single one of you makes the same mistake in the end, dressed in different outfits. You believe your darkness is what makes you dangerous. Against regular people and an overworked police force, maybe. Against Dexter Morgan, it's the most predictable thing about you, and eventually, the thing that gets you killed. You have urges, a system, and rituals. He has patience. You have years of getting away with things. He has 30 years of the same, plus a code that makes every move deliberate rather than reactive. Your darkness has never been shaped into anything useful, it's just been running loose. And letting something loose and actually training it have two entirely different outcomes. The paranoia near the end always feels the same way. A familiar car in an unfamiliar spot, a question that lands at a slightly wrong angle, a gap you can't fill in your own understanding. You tell yourself it's just the background noise of living a double life. Every predator eventually develops a high level of alertness. This feels like that, but it's not. It's the edge of Dexter's investigation making first contact with you. He is close enough to feel, but still too far to see clearly. By the time you correctly identify where the pressure is coming from, the window to do anything about it has already closed. Here's the part nobody mentions when you are constructing your empire, your rituals, and your airtight cover story. Dexter has already done all of this. Whatever move you make, he has made a version of it. Whatever facade you build, he has built a better one and lived inside it longer. Whatever darkness you think sharpens you, he carries the same darkness with 30 years of training and a code that focuses it. You entered this believing you were something new that the system had never dealt with before, but you're not. You're just the next name on a list Dexter has been extending for decades. Names that all eventually became nothing more than missing persons cases and blood slides in Dexter's box. What really twists everything is how much you and Dexter actually share. Same raw material. Trauma. Early exposure to the worst things people do to each other. A brain that processed it in ways it was never supposed to. Same ability to read a room, wear a mask, and operate comfortably as the person everyone believes you to be. You could have been shaped the way he was. He could have come out the way you did. Harry Morgan and Dr. Vogel took something that could have been pure chaos and gave it limits, direction, and purpose. Nobody did any of that for you. The gap between those two outcomes, between a controlled burn and just a wildfire, is the gap between still being alive at the end of the story and being a footnote in someone else's kill log. The story does not end for him. It only ends for you. And the most unsettling part is not even the ending itself, but realizing that you never truly understood what you were up against. No matter what version of the villain you are, the end is a foregone conclusion. The plastic is already overhead. Pictures of your victims are staring back at you as you lie on a table you will never get up from. There's a short conversation. You try to beg for your life, but it's no use. The last thing you see is a knife glinting in the low lighting. The last thing you hear is your own muffled screaming. The light fades, and the chaos is finally over. Good game, though. How do you think it would feel to be a Dexter villain? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you haven't watched our POV, You Are Dexter Morgan video yet, go watch it right after this because seeing it from his side makes everything hit differently. Remember to slash that subscribe button before you go. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.